Dude, Batman Earth 1 Volume 2 is just epic. I cannot wait to dive into it in this spoiler talk review. What did you think of this graphic novel if you got to read it? Let me know in the comments. Welcome to Durbania, I'm Durbin, and this is my spoiler talk comic book review for Batman Earth 1 Volume 2. I've been going through this Earth 1 series, and so you can check out my review of Volume 1 with this link. You can also check out my review of the 3 Superman volumes in this Earth 1 series. What I love about this Earth 1 series is here we are with origin stories, treading out the beginnings of these heroes all over again. But this Earth 1 series, to me, it just takes risks. It does unique twists with the characters and things like that. So as you're going through these origin stories, it's fresh, it's new, at least for me. That's exactly how it feels. And what they did with Batman in this volume is just fantastic. So this one takes place 6 months after Volume 1 ends, and they do a really good job picking it up and carrying it through and going through some of the consequences of what happened at the end of the last volume. So I think this is so smartly written, so clever, and just a unique take on Batman and his villains. And some of the most unique takes of this series are with the villains. In fact, my favorite is Harvey Dent. Now, when it comes to Harvey Dent, I mean, you look at Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight, it's the typical arc of Harvey Dent. He's a good guy, he's got a bit of a dark side. In the Dark Knight movie, his girl that he loves gets killed by the Joker, half his face gets burned up, he gives into the dark side. Now, that's kind of a typical origin story for Harvey Two-Face, you know, like he is, you know, the White Knight of Gotham. He gets brought down to the level of those criminals. He gets half his face scarred. He gives over to the dark side. And they lay some really good foundation for that in this. But some of the unique twist of Harvey Dent comes in the fact that it's not Harvey Dent alone. He has a twin sister, Jessica Dent. And so she becomes the mayor of Gotham after the Penguin, Cobblepot, is overthrown. After he's killed by Alfred, she ends up becoming mayor in his place. And even while Cobblepot was mayor, you had the Dents working hard to expose the corruption of Cobblepot, to expose the evil that he was doing. And now that Jessica's mayor and Harvey is also still, you know, our district attorney, they're both working together overtime to expose the rest of the corruption. In fact, they've uncovered that since Cobblepot's death, 5 key people in Gotham have picked up the threads of this organized crime. You know, people from city council, people from the mayor's office, you know, people from like places of power, but they don't know the names. They just have been able to pick up through Harvey Dent, as he's been smart and strategic with the people that he's cut deals with and sent back on the street, and how he's figured out, you know, who they're reporting to, where they're coming from. He's been able to map out the 5 places that this organized crime is still working. And so you have Harvey, you have Jessica, and they're working overtime to bring light into Gotham and to be a light for Gotham. And so I thought, that's incredibly smart, that the way they did that. So for Harvey Dent especially, that lays the light side of his character. Now, when they were all kids, when they were growing up and teenagers, Jessica and Bruce Wayne, they were in love with each other. And Harvey Dent couldn't accept that. So, protecting his sister, he beat the snot out of Bruce Wayne. So we're seeing the bully side of him and that darker side of him. And we're seeing the foundation for that laid, you know, this Harvey Two-Face thing. The one face is good and he wants the good for Gotham. He wants the good for his sister. But then that dark side is this, the means he goes about it. He's such a jerk and he's such a bully. And so they lay that foundation. And I think it's really smart and clever how they lay that foundation. The other thing that's interesting is Jessica and Bruce in this volume fall in love all over again. And Jessica's no idiot. I mean, Bruce Wayne says a few key phrases and she begins to pick up that he's Batman. In fact, she discovers that he's Batman and she knows that, but she's not going around and blabbing that. Instead, what she wants is for Bruce Wayne, not Batman, to be the symbol. She's trying to encourage Bruce to step out as a light to the city. If his parents were the king and queen of Gotham, he is Gotham's prince. And as they expose these 5 people that are still working in the darkness and corruption, people in Gotham will be disillusioned. So what they need is somebody like Bruce Wayne using their power, using their money, influence, and company for the good of the city, to have somebody to look up to. So she's trying to encourage Bruce Wayne not just to step out as Batman, but to really step out as Bruce Wayne and be the light that this city needs. And so throughout this, Bruce is falling in love with her. He's like, can I really be in love? and be Batman. So I mean, so that question comes up a little, but what I like about this is they don't do this like a soap opera. It's not soap opera drama. In fact, it's really important to the story, and I think what they've done here too is they've sown some seeds that we haven't reaped the harvest yet. Like, we haven't seen where this is going to go yet. And so another thing that's really interesting, so you have these Riddler attacks going on throughout this entire graphic novel. So finally, the Riddler at the end is holding people hostage in Gotham PD. Batman is in the midst of this situation. The Dents are in the midst of this situation. The power gets cut. Riddler opens the cell doors for all the criminals who are, guess what, going after Harvey Dent for putting them there. So they stab Harvey in the stomach with a knife, and they throw a Molotov cocktail at him, burning up like half of his face and half of his body, and he's laying on the ground dying, and you're like, this is it. This is the origins of Two-Face. Not super different from what they've done before, but still really good and smartly written. And then the twist happens. Jessica holds her brother's body close to hers as he's dying, and she puts her face up against his face, and you get the psh sound because she puts her face up against the burning part of his face. So you know her face here is getting all disfigured as it's melting to his side, and then he dies. He literally he dies of his wounds. They bury him. Harvey Dent, who we know as Two-Face, is dead. But Jessica's alive, and now she's injured and burned. She's psychologically scarred. And so at the very end of this comic, Bruce Wayne, who is still in love with her, comes to visit her in the hospital. And here she is in the hospital, bandages all on this side of the face. She turns to Bruce, "Get away from my sister!" And then the next panel, she's talking like Jessica. So she has known Harvey better than anybody else. She has been psychologically wounded and impacted by his death. And now she's really Two-Face. She has this split personality existing now. So Harvey Dent, while dead, in a sense, is alive in this split personality that they're really indicating exists here. But it seems like it's that dark part, because it's the threatening part that threatened Bruce the way that when they were teenagers, Harvey would threaten Bruce. And I thought that was such a brilliant take, because now this really is Two-Face. I mean, this is Jessica, who is the mayor and wants to do good for Gotham, and now the second personality, Harvey. Now, again, this is just the end of the graphic novel, so it's not like we dive deep into this, but I think that is the most awesome take. And I would say that it's the most awesome take simply because it's so different, but it's also so well written. And I like that it's bringing something fresh to a character and a villain that we know. So it's still Two-Face, and there's still a major influence of Harvey Dent, but it is different. It's Jessica Dent. The origin story is different enough that we know we're going to be able to work this a little bit differently, especially since Jessica knows Bruce Wayne is Batman, and Bruce Wayne and Jessica love each other. So I don't know all the places it's going to go, but I feel like this is a solid foundation to do something new and different. So you're still playing with a villain that we all know and love, and we're going to get a lot of aspects of that villain that we know and love. But because of this foundation, we're also going to get something fresh, new, and unique, and I really like that. The next thing that was interesting is Killer Croc. Now, when it comes to Batman, I've always found his villains to be so incredibly interesting. And Killer Croc, like, I think they tried to make him interesting in the movie Suicide Squad. It just didn't really work for me. But look at this. This volume is so thin, but it's so well written that I found Killer Croc to be such an interesting and fascinating character in this. Throughout the beginning of this, we get, like, in the background, these news stories of a Killer Croc in the sewers that's killing people and eating people and things like that. And so Batman, and Gordon, they figure out that, Riddler's operating somewhere in the sewers. Now, this is also a really interesting kind of backstory, because as Batman now knows, he's got to go through the sewers and find the Riddler's hideout. We get this other piece of information that Batman's ancestors, Jeremiah Arkham, helped design the sewers of Gotham, or he designed the sewers, and he made them this giant labyrinth so the spirits haunting Gotham would get lost down there and be stuck down there and never come up. So in the process of Jeremiah doing that, he went nuts creating the labyrinth. So where it really shows is that streak of insanity that is in that Arkham bloodline, and that bloodline does exist in Batman, and so it's like, wow. So it's just really cool to me, the foundations they're laying, the seeds they're planting for some really cool things that they could do in later volumes, and I'm really excited to dive into that. So getting back to Killer Croc, Batman ends up in the sewer, Killer Croc sees him, and they have an epic fight. But it turns out Killer Croc is only fighting because he thinks everybody on the surface already thinks of him as a monster. And here's a guy dressed as a bat. So they end up talking, And he's like, no, my name is Waylon Jones. I have this weird skin disease. My teeth were filed just to make me look scarier for the circus. And I escaped the circus and I live down here because everybody thinks I'm a monster that eats people. And so I'm living down here because I'm just trying to be away from that world. And just in that moment, what they did is they made him very sympathetic. And then the very next thing they did is Killer Croc says, oh, so you're down here looking for this other dude? I mean, there's been a guy in a green coat, and he goes down the hallway and to the right, or whatever directions he gives Batman. And so he helps Batman find the Riddler's underground sewer hideout. And so that was a really interesting thing. So they take Killer Croc, they make him a sympathetic character, and then they make him a likable character, and he's helping Batman. And so it's really interesting. The other thing that's interesting is at the end of this graphic novel, the Riddler has Batman backed into a corner, and they're near, a sewer grate. And just as he's about to shoot Batman, Killer Croc comes up behind the Riddler and just boom, punches that guy in the back, and Riddler turns around and shoots Killer Croc. But because of the distraction, Batman's able to defeat the Riddler. And so, Killer Croc helps Batman. They make him a strong and likable character in this graphic novel, and I just think that's so smart and so well done. The other thing that's really interesting about Killer Croc, and I can't wait in future volumes to see what they do with this, is Bruce Wayne takes in Killer Croc. He gets shot helping him at the end. So, at the end there, we see Alfred patching up Killer Croc, and Bruce Wayne's talking to Alfred, and he's like, well, yeah, he's going to help me find a place to hide the car. And Alfred's like, what car? Because Bruce Wayne is having Fox design and build the Batmobile. And all that is a really interesting, fascinating story all unto itself. But it sounds like Killer Croc is going to help Batman find places to hide things like his Batmobile. Possibly indicating to me things like the Batcave, that, Killer Croc living underground, being in the sewers, knows where things like this are. And the fact that he's going to help Bruce Wayne with this. So I kind of feel like Killer Croc knows Bruce Wayne is Batman, since he's sitting there talking to Alfred at the end, and Bruce Wayne is really helping this guy out. And now Killer Croc is going to know things like where Batman hides his Batmobile, because he's going to help him find that place. So what seed are they sowing here? What are we going to reap in later volumes? Is Killer Croc going to become a villain like he normally is and turn against Bruce Wayne, knowing Batman is Bruce Wayne, knowing where the Batcave and knowing where, the Batmobile is hidden and things like that? I'm just so curious to see where they're going. And that's another thing. This is more setup that this volume is building and things that it's getting me excited about. The other interesting thing in this is Batman and Gordon. So they continue to deepen the relationship between Gordon and Batman. And the way that they do it, I said one negative I had about Volume 1 was, I love the Christopher Nolan versions when he puts on the cape and cowl, after his training, after all of that. When he finally steps out and makes himself known as Batman, he's a mysterious character. Or Tim Burton's Batman, he steps out, he's known as Batman, and he's a mysterious character. This one is, he was trained by Alfred, no Ra's al Ghul, and so he's still learning as he goes. And I was like, I like it as a character choice, it's cool, but I like also the mysterious Batman. I think this kind of made that a whole lot less negative, because we see Batman's not the greatest detective, but as he's talking with Gordon about trying to find these 5 people that have taken over the Penguin's crime syndicate, as they're talking about it, Gordon's like, look, I need more information. Can you get me more information? So Batman learns to go out and get more information. These Riddler attacks start to happen, which in itself is incredibly interesting. And as these Riddler attacks are happening and Batman and Gordon are investigating this, there's a friendship forming. There's a trust forming. And so Batman is learning from Gordon. So you have Batman, who has Alfred, who's the father figure and mentor that's given him the bulk of his training. Now he's got his detective skills that he's sharpening and learning from Gordon. It kind of it builds that relationship, and I think it makes it stronger. So I really liked what they did between Batman and Gordon in this. And lastly, we got to talk about the Riddler. The Riddler is, well, he's the Riddler. I mean, there's a lot about the Riddler that is the same as any other version you get into. I mean, this graphic novel opens with people in an elevator, and the elevator goes up instead of down. They're all trapped, and the Riddler comes in on the intercom, and he goes, answer me this riddle in 60 seconds, and I'll let you live. Of course, they don't answer, and they all die. And it's really interesting because what you find is the 5 people that have taken over the Penguin Syndicate, the Riddler's targeting them. But he's killing a bunch of people in the process to hide the one murder that he's trying to accomplish. What I think is interesting about that is when Batman and the Riddler are talking over intercoms to each other in a different scene later on, the Riddler's saying, riddle me this. Who is the Batman? And not just like, he's not curious about the secret identity. He's like, who is this person really? And then he talks about himself. He's like, now look, I know there's these 5 people that have taken over the Penguin's crime syndicate, and I know their names. And me, I'm destroying them, and I'm destroying this entire syndicate. I'm destroying the corruption that this guy created. And he goes, so maybe I'm a hero like you, or maybe I'm just a madman. But what was interesting to me was that take on it, that, you know, he really was targeting the bad guys. But he is a madman because he's killing all these innocent people to cover up his targets, to cover up who he's targeting. So he's taking them out, but he's killing a lot of people in the process. And so Batman is getting emotional about this because he's trying to, you know, defeat this guy. And it's hard. The Riddler's really good at covering his tracks. And so what's really interesting is how this bonds him together with Gordon, how this has him down in the sewer bonding with the killer Croc, and how it kind of has that stuff. In fact, this is how we meet Catwoman. I mean, he gets like blown up in some explosion thing, lands on her balcony, and she kind of takes him in, nurses him back to health, and releases him. But, you know, he sends flowers back to that apartment, and it turns out somebody had left, and she was squatting there and robbed them. So she's, you know, a cat burglar, and so she helped the Batman because, you know, that whole interesting dynamic between Catwoman and Batman. So we don't see her in the suit yet, but we get this interesting introduction to her, and it's just interesting, the seeds they're sowing, the harvest that later we're going to reap, the way that they're just carefully laying the groundwork to bring us a fresh and unique take on this entire Batman universe is just so interesting to me. So their take on the Riddler was interesting, Killer Croc was interesting, Batman and Gordon becoming friends was interesting. But anyway, it was just a unique way to introduce us to Catwoman, and so I thought like that was so smart. And so the groundwork that they're laying in this origin story, how fresh and different it is, it's just, I'm so looking forward to future volumes of all of these series, and I can't wait to see where they're going with these characters. I can't wait to see if they do an Earth 1 Justice League and how they're going to form that. Like, I can't wait for all of that. So I really liked Volume 2. I'm giving it an A+. If you read this Batman Earth 1 Volume 2, what grade would you give it? Let me know your thoughts about it in the comments. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Next to the subscribe button is that bell. Click the bell so you're notified the moment I drop more comic book reviews like this. Like next week, I'm going to dive into Wonder Woman Earth 1 Volume 1. I have never read it. It's going to be my first time, fresh take, and I cannot wait to read that graphic novel and talk about it. I can't wait till March where I hear the rumor we're getting a Green Lantern Earth 1. I cannot wait for that. So there's a lot of good stuff on the horizon. Hit the subscribe button so you're notified when that drops, and when I drop other theological analyses, movie reviews, ranking videos, trailer reactions, and whatever else I do here. I do a lot of fun stuff here, so check all of that out. Hit the subscribe button, hit that bell. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.